All right, guys, give me 1 second here. We'll get started. I had to recreate the link. I'm gonna just make sure I share it with everybody in the group here. Give me 1 second. Link. And updated link. All right. So let me come back over here. All right. So having a little trouble there with my internet, so I had to move. I'm just gonna verify that we are working here really quickly. So give me a second to do that. I will get better at these live streams over time. And let's see here. Let's make sure this is working. All right, we are working. Let's make sure this is working. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. That'll be the first thing that I'm going to do. And we're going to jump in here and start talking about the markets and what is ahead this week for the stock market. Lots to talk about. Going to be a big week. Let me share my screen here. Window, bang, that, and we're good. Okay. All right. So welcome everybody to the live stream. This is I think maybe the 5th week on these, and this is something that I'm making as a weekly feature here. I'm still working out the kinks as I do this because it's new for me, but very grateful that you're here. Or for those of you who are watching this after the fact, thank you for being a supporter of the channel. And really, again, courage pays better than fear trading is all about empowering you with the information you need to be able to trade with discipline, follow your plan, and also too with the analysis videos that I do, give you my take on things so that you can use that knowledge and have your own interpretation of it, right? I am not a market sage or a guru, and I don't profess to be that, but what I want to do is to share information with you to get you thinking about the charts and what's presented so that you can make informed decisions about your trading and how best to approach things. And so really, to frame everything in terms of where we are right now, everything is centered on the conflict that is taking place between Iran and Israel. And that's going to be the narrative focus for quite some time until there is some type of resolution achieved between these two countries. And what we really want to monitor as traders and investors is, do we see peace established, or at least discussions, negotiations, talks between these two countries occurring? Because that's going to be important for this to be squashed and for progress to be made. And that will in turn impact the markets in a positive way to where a bullish trend can be restarted. But if things escalate and continue to get more intense, if other countries are brought into this conflict, then that will not be good for markets. So if you are a trader and investor out there now, you need to be paying attention to what is happening with this conflict. And the one thing that I want to bring up is the last time that we had a similar situation, and this was back on October 1st. So I'm going to go back to this chart to show you. This was when Iran launched missiles at Israel, and that happened on October 1st. So here's the SPY chart, and I want to show you that. This is actually the SPX. So you can see here, October 1st, what happened, we sold down, got bought up, and then sold off at the end of the day. And that's what happened really on Friday. And then that next day, you can see just kind of moved sideways. The next day from there, dropped down a little bit. And then after that is where the push higher started. So the reason why I bring this up is we're looking to see if this will be similar in terms of the pattern that is followed if we're going to get a sideways to choppy day tomorrow, and if we're going to get that for a few days before resuming an uptrend. And then also notice too that, okay, this was the first day of that conflict. That second day, it actually sold down lower than where the lows were that previous day. So we could be in store for a little bit more volatility to come in and get some weakness and some selling that comes into play tomorrow, so Monday. So just keep that in mind. And then just from a data perspective, as if this wasn't enough volatility to be injected into the markets, we also have some important data that's going to be coming out. And on Tuesday, really Monday, there's not much. Actually, New York Empire State Manufacturing might provide a little bit of a move. It'll give some insight into the health of the economy. But it's when we come over to Tuesday, when we see that retail sales month over month, that investors, traders are going to be watching pretty closely. The forecast is negative 0.7% that it's expected to come in at. So we'll see what that actually is. And that will be at 8:30 a.m. And then from there, the big day will be Wednesday. And yes, we're getting building permits and we're getting housing starts, but it's all about the Fed meeting rate decision, which we'll get at 2 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to get the Fed's dot plot at 2 p.m. And the last time we had a dot plot where the number of rate cuts during the year were slashed, that was in December, and there was a massive sell-off. So the Fed is expected to keep rates steady, but pay attention to what is shared in the dot plot. Are there more rate cuts forecasted, or are they cutting the number of rate cuts? If that's the case, you're going to see some even greater volatility and a bigger drop in equities. And then from there, we're also going to get the Jerome Powell press conference, which is going to be at 2:30 p.m. I will be live streaming that you can find that link on my channel, and I hope that you will join me for that. We can watch it together. I'll add some commentary as we go through. You can post your questions and thoughts. And then we do have a holiday this week on Thursday. So June 19th is going to be Juneteenth. And so markets will be closed that day. So following the Fed, we'll have a close day. And then Friday, the markets will open back up to close out the week. And we'll get Philly Fed manufacturing, which will give us a little bit more insight into the economy. But that will wrap up the week. And really, in terms of earnings, there's nothing I'm watching. Really, the only final earnings report that I want to see will be the final week of June, and that's the 25th, and that's going to be due. And so just taking a look at the SPX here, you can see that we were just grinding higher after that drop that came in here on the 20th of May and ran through May 23rd. We started pushing up, and then we really just kept bumping our head off this upper trend line resistance. And really things just kind of stalled out this move upward, and we were due for a pullback. And so it just so happened there's a geopolitical issue, and that caused the start of this sell down. And so what we want to watch here now is we are below that 10-day exponential moving average, but we have that 20 EMA on the daily that's below us at 59.2877. So watching that, if it does drop, does that serve as a support or it pushes up? And you can see the last time we dropped here again back in May, on May 20th, it did find support at that 20. So I think this is a buyable dip. Typically with these types of conflicts, they're not long lasting. In fact, war is bullish. So look for a retest of that 20 and then dip buyers to come in and push us back up. And if we were to fall further than that 20, you could see that we have that 200-day simple moving average down here at 58.09. And that would be a better retracement, a better pullback. And that would be a total of, from these recent highs down to here, about 4%, a little over 4%. So that would be a more healthy pullback to set things up for the next leg up. And then potentially from there, we could take out all-time highs and then go into what probably will be a week late July that will run through the end of October. And remember, I think I've talked about this every time I've done the live stream, but you have Jem Carson, who's still calling for that 30 to 40% decline. from all-time highs before things are all said and done with. Just to show you how far that would be, a 30% drop is all the way down here at 43.06. So that would be a pretty significant move if that were to happen. And 40% would take us down to 36.7109. So that will be quite the precipitous fall. Who knows if that will happen? But the retest right now, this little pullback is definitely needed. And so again, watch that 20 and watch that 200 as being potential bouncing spots for dip buyers to come in here. And then if you just go check out the rest of the broader markets here, we can see that the Qs, similar type of pattern. You've got the 20 below it. And then really what I'd look for a bouncing spot on the Qs below that 20 would be the low from DeepSeek. Whenever the DeepSeek model came out, and we saw weakness in all the chip sector, NVIDIA took a big hit, see if we would get a bounce there. And then below that, we have that 50. And that would give us a retracement from from the recent highs down to that DeepSeek low, would put us over 4% and was 5%. So that would be a healthy little pullback, a little mini correction, not a full correction, not 10%, but just something to keep an eye on. IWM, we have that inverted head and shoulders pattern that is still in play here. We have a nice little retest. We are below the 10. It looks like we want to come down and retest that 100. And there's some nice support there. If we go back and look to the left, we see support at that 100. So that could be setting up for a push higher. And it looked like IWM was going to break above those moving averages overhead there, that 200 SMA in the daily and the 50 on the weekly. But that's right where it got rejected and it started falling down. So those are key areas if you're an IWM bull that you want to see broken. So if this thing could start pushing back up and challenging for all-time highs. The Dow Jones Industrial, the similar looking pattern here to the IWM, but you could see that this found support off of that 100 SMA on the daily. It got a little bit of a bounce, and it does have that 50 SMA on the weekly here that would keep it from following too fast. But again, news events can cause these things to drop rather quickly. So we'll see what happens here if it does come down further, if it's going to get support, and if it will bounce out of there. But this was above all of its moving averages, and it had room, but it just kind of fizzled out. You did see a decent amount of bear volume come in there on Friday. So we'll see. Tonight's going to be interesting with futures to see how we open. And speaking of that, just to get a feel for potentially what we're in store for, if we come over to Bitcoin, this being a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week market, you can see that there is a little bit of weakness right now, some selling after a little bit of, I don't want to call it a pop, but, coming off of its lows, it has been selling down here in the past couple of hours. And let's see if this intensifies as we get closer to futures opening. Let's see if it'll come down and retest that 50 SMA on the daily. But Bitcoin is definitely showing some a little bit of weakness right now. And yes, if you look at this, it does look like a double top pattern. It was forming a head and shoulders here, but this made a higher high. I mean, that would be a funky looking head and shoulders there. And because this right shoulder here is higher than that left shoulder, I wouldn't count that as a pure head and shoulders pattern. This to me looks more like a double top. And what we have is a higher high, lower high. We have this upper trend line resistance that we're now watching. So we'll see if we push up into this area, if it gets rejected and comes down, or whether or not it could push through that and re-challenge those all-time highs. Coming over to the VIX, we saw a spike on the VIX here on Friday, obviously because of what's happening in the Middle East, and it was stifled by the 100 SMA on the daily. This can pump a lot of volatility into the markets, and when you're throwing the Fed meeting on top of that, we could see a spike in the VIX even more. And I came back over here to show, when you look at what happened the last time there were these attacks, you could see that we did get above that 100 SMA before dropping back down. So while the volatility may spike, if things get resolved rather quickly, we'll see this drop down. Again, that's why this is going to be something you want to monitor and pay attention to. Is this conflict resolved fast, or is it going to linger, and are more parties going to get involved? In that case, you could see more pressure on equities longer than expected. And until there is some clarity, you can expect, more downward movement. And then just taking a look at the 10-year Treasury, really just kind of chopping around here. It's a bit range bound. We'll see if this wants to move higher, but it dropped down. It did get below that 50 simple moving average on the day, found some support at the 200, and we got a slight little push here on Friday. So we're monitoring this to see, does the 10-year come down? Does it push higher? Because again, an elevated 10-year will put some pressure on equities as well. So just to overall look at the broader markets, just kind of summarizing everything, there's going to be some short-term weakness, short-term volatility off of this conflict between Iran and Israel. And until that gets resolved, we're going to see more downward pressure. So the edge will be short. However, if you get these massive moves down, like we saw on Friday, the bulls came in and bought it up. Now, it doesn't mean that they erased all those losses, but you can see quick pushes, quick pops that you can ride it for day trades. So let's say that we open with a gap down tomorrow. You'd want to look early for a nice little a pop, or buyers are coming in and buying that dip. And then like we saw the second half of the day, things sold back down. You could see a repeat of that again tomorrow. And again, that's consistent with what happened in October. So just keep an eye on that and watch and see what happens. And so I'll go through just a few individual tickers here. I have Sharul said JBL earnings, so we could pull up JBL here in a second. I'll look at that one for you. In fact, let's do that first. JBL. Let me pull this up here. Jabil, I've never even traded this company before, but let's take a look at it here. I always like to start by looking at the all-time high. So this is an all-time high for this company. And so again, this thing is going to be pretty extended at this point. Let me mark this out here, all-time high. And if we look on the monthly, we are not overbought yet. Weekly, we are not overbought, and daily we were overbought, but that's since come back down. So that makes sense. Again, everything really showed some weakness unless you were Oracle on Friday. And so, this one, looking at it, you do have this nice volume node here of support. So if this were to gap down on earnings on Tuesday, it's going to have support where it potentially can bounce. But in terms of, can it continue to go higher? Again, if it's extended, you just want to be careful, because you might have a lot of people FOMOing into this, thinking that it's going to push further. But when things are extended, I'm a little cautious and trying to trade it. But just kind of looking at the last few earnings reports, here we had gap down. So the most recent one was a gap down. If we come back to, this was December, we had a gap down. If we go back to September, we had a gap up. So let's see here. And then June last year, this was a gap down. So 3 of the 4 previous earnings reports were removed. The optimism is high around this company. Again, I'm not even sure what they do. And if they have an amazing report, if there's solid future guidance, forward guidance in terms of what's going to happen the rest of the year, you could see a move higher. And again, if you think about Oracle, let's go back to Oracle. Similar situation, being that it was extended. It wasn't at all-time highs, but it was close. So just because it's extended doesn't mean it's going to fall off a cliff, but you just want to be careful, knowing that, if it does drop because it's so far up there, it could move pretty quickly. So we'll keep an eye on JBL here this week, and we'll see, how that one plays out. Let's take a look at a few other tickers here. Again, Roblox continues to be strong. It's above all of its moving averages. We still have quite a ways to go to its all-time high, 142.42. The volume has stayed pretty consistent here with this one. And I wouldn't be surprised to see by the end of June, first week of July, it starts retesting those all-time highs because it has showed no signs of slowing down. And even on Friday with all the events that were happening, it just continued to push. And I talked about MU at the outset of this video. All right, why is that doing that? Hold on, guys. Why is that coming up there? All right. All right, my trading view is being crazy. Let's go to MU. It's like frozen. Must be an internet issue. Let me try to come over here and do it this way. I'm frozen. All right, I think I'm back. Hold on. Let me see here. I'm monitoring from my phone. All right, we're good. We're good. All right, so MU. Let's come down here, take a look at MU, and we're here on the daily. We're back up into that resistance area on MU. Again, earnings isn't until June 25th. Want to see what it's going to do here. Do we get a little bit of a pullback and a rest? And then on that earnings report, do we push up? That'll be something that I'll be watching here on Micron. It is overdue. You do have lots of gaps to fill overhead. This 127.74 being the first one. Not sure that it can get back up to all-time highs, but keep in mind, we have seen a lot of tickers make significant pushes on earnings. And so MU could be one of those that's due and could make a run. And I really do like this chart, again, especially since, really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times we've tested that area. So it's got to break out of there sooner rather than later. Taking a look at Microsoft back up here near all-time highs. And you would think that this one would start to cool off a little bit and take a breather. We saw a little bit of a move down, not a significant one on Friday. Overbought on the RSI, but you could see just how far extended this thing is from its moving averages. So, you would think this one cools off here at some point. Now, who knows when. Apple, I really, really like Apple, and it's been a laggard for quite some time. I have areas marked out where I'm going to slowly start accumulating shares if it continues to drop, and I'll be willing to hold for quite some time. But I just like the support that it's establishing here. I mean, if you just look back to the left after these lows were made in April when everything bottomed out, I do like the support. And just from perspective of rotation, eventually you're going to see some of these big boys that have been running fast and furious. That money's going to move into other tickers. Apple would be one of those. So I'm definitely watching that in the next couple of weeks. I mentioned Oracle. This thing just moved so fast on earnings. And I talked about in the earnings preview that I did about all the bearish volume associated with this candle and how if that got closed above, it would hit new all-time highs and go above 200. Well, it did all that plus tax. And these are just super strong candles and continued volume. And look at this candle, despite all the weakness geopolitically on Friday, it just pushed up. So keep an eye on Oracle. That's very, very strong in terms of what it did there. And it's pretty impressive. Broadcom cooled off more this week. It did get a little bit of a push up. We'll see if it wants to come up and fill this gap here before coming down more. But it needed a cool off. It was very overbought on the RSI. So again, if we see more weakness in the markets here, this one definitely has more room to come down. So definitely watching that. And then we come over to NVIDIA, which is still just stuck at this resistance here. And the weekly shows it a little bit better, but it's going to take some type of catalyst, some type of news for it to push out of here. It wants to go, but you could see these upper wicks every time it gets up into this range, it just gets shot down. So not sure what it's going to take for it to happen, but I will say, let me go over to the hourly and let's go back and look at what happened during the first Iran-Israeli conflict back in October. So that was right here, and it dropped down, and then it went on a run. So not saying that's going to happen again, but just keep an eye on it. It's due. I keep saying that so much. Nvidia's due. It's not doing anything. So let's see. Let's see what plays out with that one here over the next couple of weeks. All right. Going to go through a few more. Again, if there's tickers that you guys want me to look at, just go ahead and throw those in the chat. If anybody put tickers in, let's see here. All right, no, nothing else. So I'll come back over here and let's just keep going through. Google, I posted in my community today how I really like the steady bullish volume that's come in on this, and we're continuing to grind up. This is a weekly chart here. And I know we did get this almost like a gravestone doji candle that came in on this push. Probably going to see a little bit of a retest, but I do like seeing this volume here. This one's interesting. Like Apple, it's been a laggard. It's well off its all-time highs. So I definitely want to keep an eye on this one in terms of what it can do this week and in the next couple of weeks. And then CRCL, this is a new IPO that just came on the market at the start of June. And this thing on Friday, look at this move that it had. I mean, it wouldn't stop. And again, this is amidst all that market weakness. And so if you were in this thing in a day trade, man, good for you. That's $27. So I'm sure someone out there had a nice chunk of shares and rode that one up. So congrats to you for making that one happen there on CRCL. And let's just take a look at a few more here. Roku, I do like Roku here. And again, we're still at this nice support. We came down. We got above all those moving averages. This is a nice little retest. You could see all of the support that's in place here. And we'll see if this price action gets absorbed in this area, if it kind of chops along a little bit before pushing back up. But this one could be setting up for a move. So I kind of like it retesting here, pulling back. And let's see if this one could get going eventually. But I do like the Roku chart. And then Palantir, I talked about how we have tweezer tops at all-time highs. Now, I will not short Palantir because it is so strong, but I'm sure there are some people out there who have the fearlessness to do so. But that's a nice setup there. Tweezer tops at all-time highs. You got market weakness. Keep an eye on Palantir dropping a little bit over the next few days. Let's go take a look at Tesla. We do have a little bit of an inverted head and shoulders pattern here. Will this play out? Again, you have a good bit of support below, especially after that big drop off of the Musk-Trump fighting. Let's see if it's going to come back down and retest and then pushes out of here. It's hard to tell. The thing with Tesla is it just does its own thing. It doesn't really move with the broader markets, and it's it's tricky. So I'm not touching Tesla right now. Day trades, swing trades, nothing really until some of this volatility gets cleared out from its name. To me, it's just too risky of a ticker to mess with. So I'm not messing with it right now. Coinbase. So we're still in that pattern of lower highs, recent highs. Again, we're far away from the all-time high. But this has to push out of here. You do have good support where it's at right now, but you'd like to see some type of test of that 200 and then push out of here. That, of course, is going to require Bitcoin to move too. But it's been cooling off since it hit all-time highs. So not really going to play Coinbase yet. And then if we take a look at UNH, we could see that we have a nice bearish Harami candle, inside candle here. And I'm looking for, bearish flag to see if we get the next leg down. Potentially that'll come this week. And yes, I'm still holding true to my cheapskate purchase area of 188 and watching that one closely. Meta. All right. So I talked about too, the volume on Meta since the lows. Notice how it's just been decreasing. And so on this move higher, you've actually had the volume dropping. So I'm not convinced this one's going to stay up here for too long. And again, I talked about rotation. If we see Meta come down, then maybe we'll see the interest flow to other stocks like Apple, like Google. But I'm not looking long here on Meta by any stretch based on that. Amazon has been quiet here lately too. We do have this gap that I share with my community up here at 235. Let's see if it does get a move, if it could push back up into that. But again, I think everything's going to start the week off kind of timid and slow and dropping off of the war news. So have to wait on this one, but this does have nice support below it. And then just taking a look at Celsius here, look at all these doji candles that are coming in as it got above the majority of its moving averages, which shows that there's indecision around this stock right now. So let's see what happens when it comes down to this 200 SMA on the weekly. If you get some buyers who pop in here and push this thing up, we have that August 2023 low, and then above that, it's the 100 SMA on the weekly. And from there, it's smooth selling, but it looks like Celsius is going to cool off and retest a little bit. So watch that 200 for a bouncing spot. Netflix, for the first time in quite some time, it did not make a new all-time high. We do have its earnings coming up on July 17th, which may seem like a long ways away, but it's really not. Today is June 15th, so a month from now, Netflix will be reporting earnings. And you would think, since this is gapped up so much, it's due for a gap down. So that's 3 in a row gapping up. So keep an eye on Netflix. It might be due for a little bit of giving back some of its gains. Marathon Digital Holding, this thing continues to be just a disappointment. Does have that inverted head and shoulders pattern, but it's just chopping. It's not really doing much. It's disappointing. Not even really strong moves here. It bounced off that 100, but again, Bitcoin's got to get going again. But this one, I'm just not even interested in trading it right now. ExxonMobil got the move. I talked about how I wanted to see it come down and test that 200 before getting a bounce. It got close and then started smoking higher. And then this news of the conflict obviously pushes oil up, and it closed above all its moving averages. So let's see if Exxon starts to get a push. You have this gap to fill up here to 117.67. I'll be watching that. So there could be some nice little day trade opportunities on ExxonMobil. And then SMCI, we're just kind of moving sideways here. On the weekly chart, you can see that there is resistance above that 50 SMA on the weekly. So a close above that's going to be important. And then you're going to have that 100 on the weekly above that in order for it to make a move. But really just kind of sideways chop for quite some time on SMCI. And then just going to take a look at a few more. We'll take a look at Carvana here. So Carvana, after its big, strong move higher, we are getting a little bit of a retest here. And it's about a 16%, little bit of a drop. When you go over to the weekly here, you can see that the last few pullbacks that it's had, it has pushed out of there. So pullback, pop, pullback, pop. Let's see if we get something similar. Let's see if we come down here and test this 50, and then it continues higher. So watching that on Carvana. And CoreWeave, again, that's as close as you can get to being tweezer tops at an all-time high without actually being tweezer tops, because you can see that price is not exactly there. So again, this is a newer IPO. I'll watch this one to see if some weakness comes into it, if we get a short opportunity. But that's an interesting pattern that's showing up here on CoreWeave. Spotify, this thing, man, look at this, just crushing. I mean, that's parabolic. What a great move. Congrats to anybody in on this thing. And that's a nice little inside candle there that we had on Friday. So let's see if this continues to push. I would think this one would have to cool off, but we do have that inside, and really that's a nice little hammer. So keep an eye on Spotify in terms of what can happen this coming week. And let's see, anything else that I want to look at here and share with you guys. Obi, this thing just got punished, right? Earnings, it did nothing. It did gap up. If you go over to the 4 hour, you could see that it gapped up post market, but it didn't hold and then got smoked right back down. It's sticking to those moving averages, but this thing can't catch a break. And there could be a good opportunity here for a swing trade. I'll try to get it a little cheaper. If it can come down and retest those lows that it made with everything else in April, I'd be interested. But as of right now, I'm not looking to do anything with it. But again, just keeping an eye on that. RH is a ticker I did an analysis on for one of the viewers of the channel. And I had this as the bullish target gap fill, and this thing did push up. It did get up to as high as 221, but what happened? They sold that thing right back down. So that did not hold at all, which shows there is weakness in this ticker, and you had good volume come in. So watch this one to come down lower. Again, this is a luxury homes materials creator, different home decor pieces. The luxury market is taking a hit with tariffs. So this one had a lot of people excited, but then that didn't last very long as it got sold back down. And that is all. Let's take a look at Bitcoin one more time here. Continuing to sell. Futures are going to open in about an hour. So that's going to do it for the live stream, guys. I appreciate you being here. If you could leave a comment on the video, I would appreciate that very much. Come back, visit the channel. If I could help you with anything, please put that in a comment, a ticker that you'd like me to look at. I'd be more than happy to do that. And I'll see you back here next weekend. We're going to be doing this every weekend. I hope to see you guys there. And happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. I hope you guys are having a great day. Take care, everyone.